important to talk about our Brat Stand proceeds and how we're spending those, and trying to give some direction to the board as we're trying to come up with a budget for this next year. So with that, I'm going to do just an introduction of what I'd like to do here today, and then Joe Ballas is going to talk a little bit about the foundation, and then I'm going to have Randy talk a little bit about scholarships, and Lynn and Rob talk a little bit about international. So we're going to kind of get around to that. Joe's got a formal presentation, which is up here. So I'm just going to leave it at that for the moment and let Joe talk a little bit about the foundation, and then we'll catch the other two, and then we'll kind of keep on. I've got some other slides myself to share with you. So Joe, go ahead.
Thanks, Dan. And I apologize for putting together a presentation up front. I guess it comes in the overachiever category. Rob or Dan's been talking to me about this for several weeks now, and I've been having a lot of conversations with different people. I've served on our foundation board for over the last 20 years, for at least 12 years, and I just gonna put some opening thoughts out here. Hey, yeah, can you move the people? Things here.
Yeah.
Perfect. There you go. Nothing against everybody else that's there, but they're like right in the middle of my slide. Just some ground rules. I wanted to say this right out front. We are a volunteer service club, and many of us have invested hundreds and hundreds of hours to service in our communities from Madison South Rotary. We are a diverse club with diverse interests and diverse thoughts about how, for example, we should spend our Brat Stand proceeds. And lastly, this information is being presented in this assembly today so as to allow us to have an open, frank, and honest discussion as to how Madison South Rotary can further all, and emphasize all, of our charitable work in the community, both today and in the years ahead. I spent some time yesterday. You guys were probably all out doing something beautiful. I spent 2 or 3 hours drinking coffee and going through Club Runner. And on Club Runner, underneath Brat Stand, is this nice newsletter that when Ted was president from 1980, Dick Rayberg wrote a history about the Brat Stand. And in the very last paragraph of that newsletter from January 2000, Dick writes this: the Madison South Rotary Brat Stand is successful in raising funds for our many and varied charities. The recipients of our contributions cannot fully realize the scope of our efforts on their behalf. The fact that people have been served is sufficient reward for each of us. This unique project dramatically demonstrates the Rotary motto, service above self. Our Brat Stand is a small blip in the vast world of Rotary International, but an important one. It was spawned by the concept that motivates business people and professional people with varied classifications to become committed Rotarians who make the seemingly impossible, not only possible, but actual in the final analysis. And that was Dick's last paragraph. And Dick Rayberg, for those of you who don't know, in our club, he was not one of our charter members in the late 1960s, but Dick came on the club in 1972. He passed away here about a decade or so ago. But he was one of that core group of people in the 70s and 80s that really established a Brat Stand that we all have a responsibility for today. I want to speak for a second because that same group of guys like Dick Rayberg, they also in 1978, even though our club was chartered in 67, they filed articles of incorporation to create the Madison South Rotary Foundation. And in our annual report, of which a copy you will get this week, because our board's approving it right now, we list those initial incorporators who created the Madison South Rotary Foundation. And then in June 1980, we got our letter of determination calling us a 501c3 nonprofit public charitable organization by the IRS. Our mission is to provide grants and scholarships to assist the elderly, disadvantaged, and children in the Madison community and through Rotary International. That's the page I got up there is from GuideStar. If you don't familiar with GuideStar, it's a national website that lists all 501c3s and what their current status is. If you wanted to check out a 501c3 before you gave to it, go to GuideStar is a good place to go to. Why does the Madison South Rotary Foundation only give grants to other 501c3 charitable organizations? Well, here's the answer. This is from the first page of our article of corporations. It says the corporation is organized effectively for charitable and educational purposes, including for such purposes, the asking of the making of distributed organizations that qualify. You guys can probably read this better than I can. But anyways, that's right in our articles of incorporation. That's why we only give to 501c3s. Well, but I will also tell you that because everyone says, well, we can't, a 501c3 can only give, no, that's not true. Madison Community Policing Foundation is a 501c3. I give money to service providers who provide us dunk tanks, bouncy houses, everything like that. So long as you take those charitable funds and you apply them to what the mission is of what the IRS gave you that 501c3 status for. It's not, it's just for us, it's more of a policy. And when they wrote our articles of incorporation, they basically limited us to only funding other 501c3 organizations. That's why it doesn't have anything to do with being a 501c3. And I hope I make that clear. Brat Stand proceeds to Madison South Rotary Foundation. Some may not know, but in June of 2020, we updated our bylaws. And in our annual meeting that year, we presented language that amended this clause of our bylaws. And the first part of this was there, we added on to the back part. The board must obtain the approval of the membership, and the membership meaning is all of us. The whole club are members of Madison South Rotary Foundation. Before the annual distributions for charitable purposes can exceed more than 25% of the sum of the corporation's assets on December 31st of the current Rotary year, plus the amount received from the Madison South Rotary Club during such year. Prior to finalization of the club's annual operating budget, the foundation board chair, now this sentence I'm reading right now, this is what we added in January 2020. Prior to the finalization of the club's annual operating budget, foundation board chair shall meet with the club president to discuss the anticipated value of the annual funding to the corporation, that's the foundation, by the club, and to confirm the timing of the transfer. The foundation board chair will advocate for the transfer of a minimum of 75% of the net proceeds from the club's annual fall UW football Brat Stand fundraiser. The foundation board chair will also confirm that this transfer will not take place later than April 1st of the following year, each football season. And that language there is to still allow us to make our spring grants. Okay, we all voted on that. I don't know if we realized what we were agreeing to, but we unanimously passed that in 2020. And that is now part of our bylaws. So what happened this year? I'm going to get down into the weeds a little bit here, but I went and grabbed some information out of various meeting minutes of both the club board and the foundation board to put together some scenarios that happened this year. But this is some notes from the minutes of November 21. Brat Stand, Brat Sergeant Jamila reported that the gross sales amount to date for the Brat Stand was $51,500 and fears that we may not reach $60,000 for the year. Now, why is that significant? I'll talk about that in a second, because total is much lower than previous Brat Stand years and coincides with notable decrease in patron attendance, product consumption, etc. On the bright side, the total amount of tips collected this year is $300 above what it was. The estimates may be as high as $5,000. On this next slide here are what the club records keep. And if you go into Club Runner, you can see all this information. They don't hide it from us. It's all there, but it's basically, this is an accounting balance sheet showing actual versus budgeted. But one of the things that I'm going to bring up later that I think is a discussion point here, and Dan is one of the reasons why Dan wants us to have this couple assembly of this, is that the club will build a budget for the club that's based on an expected Brat Stand revenue put out there. In this particular past year, I think we anticipated a $67,000 in gross revenue from the Brat Stand, yet our Brat Stand proceeds because of 11 o'clock football games, and quite honestly, COVID and attendance not where it used to be, and people not being comfortable and being in a packed Brat Stand with 600, 700 people, we didn't hit the sales numbers that we normally would hit in a football season. How much does the Madison South Rotary Foundation determine how much to disperse to local charities each spring? In the 20 years I've been doing this, this is pretty much what our golden rule is. We have two amounts that we come up with. One is we look at our December 31st value of the corpus of the foundation, whatever is there, and we use 6% of that money, and that came from something that Luis Guggens gave us many, many, many years ago. And Luis was a financial planner, by the way. But this past year, for example, we had $273,000 in our corpus on December 31st. 17% of that was 16,000 plus change. We rounded up. $72,000 was the first amount that we used. The second amount that we've always used is 80% of the total net Brat Stand proceeds from the previous UW football season. And I emphasize again the word net. And remember the foundation bylaw change that we made. It emphasizes net. Unknown what this amount was this past football season. Madison South Rotary Foundation Board applies the remaining of the 20% of the net Brat Stand proceeds to grow the corpus of the foundation. That's been our formula for years. But this year was difficult. This is some notes that Jenny took in our meeting this year. And it's just one paragraph, but Jane indicated that there was 17,000 there. It was the 6% that was from the amount one that I just spoke about. But we were confused about what other monies were actually there, what the net proceeds were. There was $15,000 transferred at this point. There was $13,000 at another point. We didn't know. We ended up just deciding we're going to make grants, 17,000 plus whatever, 23,000. We ended at $40,400 is what we ultimately did. But Jenny emphasized here through that discussion, and it was more lengthy than what's one paragraph that Jenny summarizes here, the importance of involving President-elect Dan Millman with foundation finances prior to his club budgeting process was discussed. And that's partly why we're having this assembly today. We did make a $40,400 in spring grant awards, and that's simply mentioned here in this slide. So how do we spend those Brat Stand proceeds? Well, we list a banner on that fence, and that lists 30 plus organizations every single year that we provided grants to.
That's updated every year?
Yes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I work with John, I think Callaway on that. I think it's a banner. Isn't it you? Who is it? Somebody does the banners. I know there's always an email that flies around about August where we get the current list of recipients and get that out to whoever, but yes, it is updated. Our club board holds back dollars for scholarships, international projects, bingo party. There's Brat Stand maintenance that's held back, and I just got it putting this out there. I noticed in the May minutes, there's a $27,000 balance in that account right now in our club records. I don't know what the hell that is, but I just threw it out there. Then also, I'm not sure where the Polio Plus donation is actually ever made. And one of the things I'm talking about here is quite to get cut to the chase is better communication. Even though we've got the current president and the past president on the club board, it seems like we're not in sync with the foundation board and the club board aren't always in sync on things. And I can't, like the tips, for instance, that's become an increasingly bigger part of our revenues, particularly as we start to move to card-based applications. And I think that's only going to continue. And I think that's another topic point that we should have in the future in terms of what is the percentage. One personal point that I just like to make, why am I a Madison South Rotarian today? It's not because I serve Bloody Marys to everybody at football Saturdays, but that guy standing next to me in this picture is George Kroll. And for those who don't know, George was a detective in the Madison Police Department and worked in the South District with me when I was the Broadway Simpson neighborhood officer. George would get me for every summer that I was neighborhood officer, a $500 check from the Madison South Rotary Brat Stand that I would then give to Village Peddler and Monona Drive. And we would rehab 100 bicycles at the beginning of every summer and give away to kids in Broadway Simpson. And I can't tell you guys what that little $500 did and Village Peddler's work to help me get those bikes out in terms of building relationships with those families and kids down on Simpson Street back in the late 80s and early 90s. That is why I'm a Madison South Rotarian today and why I joined this club. And I think my joining date was when I got promoted to sergeant in January 1993. Some thoughts going forward, and I'll turn this back over to Dan. Clear accounting between the club funded activities and the foundation, keeping things cleaner, I guess, grants, activities, programs, etc. It doesn't mean that the foundation can't provide pay for programming. It's just we got to transfer the money over to the club account in order to do those things. The club board, this is personal. Club board should not be building an annual budget a full year out based on anticipated revenues of the Brat Stand, which has not yet occurred. Again, we need to talk about the 75% of net proceeds to the foundation, 25 back to the club to do club projects. Future Brat Czars should talk about net club profits as much as we talk about gross profits. You know, we're always cheerleading. We're always cheerleading. Yeah, we made this much at this Brat Stand. Well, you want to know something? There's a lot of expenses, and everybody that's been a Brat Star knows that goes into putting on. You got to spend money to make money, gang. But we should also be talking about its net as much as we talk about gross. And then this is going to be a segue, because in a few weeks, Mike and others are going to be talking about. We also want to grow the corpus of our foundation. We're sitting there today with over $200,000+ that's just sitting there. Yet we turned down numerous organizations. We had $136,000 in requests to the foundation this year. Yet we only gave out $40,400 to grant. If we're not going to see any, you know, we need to talk as a foundation board to really, are we going to continue to take in 40+ requests and then have the foundation president only tell no to all? I mean, we're telling no to several organizations or not giving them nearly what they asked for. So anyways, floor is open. I'm done. Thank you.
While you get my presentation up, Randy, why don't you come up here so that you're behind the camera and you just talk about the scholarship, and then I'll ask you to do the same after Randy's done.
We're going over, right?
Yeah, we're going to go over. So if people, if you have to leave, but we're probably going to for sure go past 1:15. So.
Oh, jeez. Why must this do this for me?
Randy, a slide?
No.
Yeah, if you want to talk, Randy, I can.
Oh, okay. Start talking. I just want to give a brief synopsis of our college scholarship program for those of you that are not familiar with it. And I'd also like to start with an update, which is actually pretty relevant to what I was going to say. We were recently able to award an 11th college scholarship, in addition to the 10 that we awarded in May. 2 years ago, Feroz and his sister contributed $1,000 to pay for the first year of a college scholarship. The student to whom that scholarship was directed was able to attend school for 1 semester, earning $500 of the scholarship. Due to a series of really sad personal events, she has not been able to continue school. So Feroz asked us to apply the remainder to an 11th scholarship. The first person on our waiting list was chosen for that scholarship. He's a young man named Eric Ramirez. And lest you think the quality of the students drop off once we get to our waiting list, I just want to let you know that of the 37 students that were nominated for scholarships, John Calloway had Eric ranked as the number 2 most deserving candidate. I had him ranked as the number 4 most deserving candidate. Eric was the first in his family to graduate from high school, first in his family to go to college. His family's expected family contribution, the amount of money that they can reasonably be expected to contribute to his college education, is 0. They cannot reasonably be expected to contribute even $1, which helps to explain why Eric held down 2 jobs during his time at La Follette High School. And in spite of that, he made the honor roll all 8 semesters at La Follette. So that's the quality of students that we're dealing with on the college scholarship program. Rather than go into the lengthy history of the program, I just want to go back to 10 years ago. We had 2 club assemblies dedicated solely to our college scholarship program. We wanted to redefine and reshape our program. We work hard at the Brat Stand for our money. We want to get the biggest bang for our buck. We want our money to make a difference. We don't want to just help kids go to school, make it easier for kids to go to school. We want to help them get to school in the first place. So as a club, we set up some parameters. We decided that we wanted to help the most deserving of the most needy high school seniors. We determined that we wanted to give a preference to those who would be the first in their family or first generation to attend college. Study after study has shown what a game changer that is for families to get that first kid into college. It not only helps the student getting the scholarship, but for younger brothers and sisters, younger cousin, it changes their mindset from a mindset of, I won't be able to go to college because nobody in my family has gone to college, to a mindset of, I'm going to go to college because my big brother went to college, my big sister went to college. I'm going to go to college because my cousin went to college. So we give a preference there. The students must have a significant financial need. The word significant should be capitalized and underlined 3 or 4 times. We determined as a club that we would give a very, very, very strong preference to those students attending Madison College. Madison College has a number of outstanding 1-year programs, a number of outstanding 2-year programs, and they have a 2-year general studies program in which all the credits transfer to virtually any 4-year college or university. Full-time tuition at Madison College runs $4,500 a year. So we thought our scholarships are really going to make a difference for kids who have no other choice than Madison College. We then look at significant challenges the student has faced, and then look at grade point average, work history, employment history, and extracurricular activities. As I said, last year we had 37 students nominated. It was a 3-hour decision meeting by the selection committee to determine our top 10. And as you can see from Eric Ramirez, it was a tough decision. For the last 7 years, the club has allocated $10,000 every year for college scholarships. So what we have done as a committee, we've awarded those in $1,000 increments. So the students receive a $1,000 scholarship during their first year at Madison College. Those who continue for the second year then receive, those funds are matched, and they receive an additional $1,000 scholarship for their second year. So that is briefly, just a real brief recap of our scholarship program. I don't know if Jenny, Paula, or John have anything to add. One thing I do want to point out as we work through however we're going to finance this. A few years ago, Madison College adopted a program called Scholars of Promise for a very few select people with significant financial needs and with other criteria. Madison College pays their tuition. It doesn't cover their fees, it doesn't cover their books, it doesn't cover their laptop. Several years ago, our club adopted a policy of if a student is accepted in the Scholars of Promise program, we make the scholarship payment directly to the student rather than the school. If it goes to the school, it doesn't help the student at all. It just goes to the school. If we make it the check payable to the student, they can use it for a laptop, they can use it for books, they can use it for fees, they can use it to put food on the table. So that's a, I will be the first to admit I'm very, very biased. I think that the college scholarship, I think, is one of the greatest programs we do in terms of potentially life-changing programs and in terms of the matching money we get out of it. John?
I just wanted to add a couple of additional points on top of what Randy said. One is that we had asked ourselves, the committee, does $1,000 really make a difference? And we posed this question to counselors and teachers throughout all the schools, and they've said, without question, that $1,000 is a really significant amount, and it matters to the students, and it makes a difference. Randy mentioned that for students who continue for the second year, their scholarship is matched, but Randy is too modest because it's the Sproul family that matches that $1,000 and provides that second year. And for those of you who are wondering about the 11 scholarship and the $500 left over from Perot's and thinking the math doesn't add up, it's because Randy and his family are paying the other $500 to complete that 11th scholarship. That's not coming from club funds, that's coming from Randy and his family. So I just wanted to offer those additional details as far as the scholarship process. It really is, when we talk to the counselors and we talk to students, and Randy's done a great job of getting follow-up and get updates, this really does make a difference in our community, not just for that student, but as Randy said, for their families, for businesses and people who employ the students. And I really do, as Randy said, also have this bias quote that it's been, for me, probably the single most rewarding thing I've done in affiliation with this club. And I'm grateful for the work that I do with giving them Paula and Randy on the committee. And just want to offer that additional background.
Okay.
Great. Lynn and Rob, you want to chat briefly about international?
Rob, you want to come?
Yep.
I'm having Rob come up because I'm going to be transferring my membership to Florida. I'll be leaving this club. We've sold our place here and in a condo in Florida. And we built one single-story house. And so it's going to be a real difficult thing leaving this club. I have been involved in the club in Florida for 6 years. I want to just say that I've been in Rotary 35 years. I've been, this club I transfer is going to be my 6th club in 6 different districts. I've been on several foundation clubs. I've been on several scholarships. And it's all, how do you take it away from your heart to not say, I mean, I totally believe in the scholar program. I totally believe in community work that we do. But for those that have been involved in international, you've always heard me say that Rotary is not Rotary. It's Rotary International. That's what our polio program is all about. And the things we do internationally where we can write a grant and match that are worthy of that too. Joe, I think that was an excellent presentation. I'm not sure that that 75-25 is going to work because I don't know that that's going to cover some of the things that are also real important to this club. We always have, you're very fortunate in Madison that you have a very giving community. I mean, between the downtown club, the Goodman brothers, so many of them that give to community projects. You are always going to have, and every club I've been in, we always had way more requests than we could ever fill. And what we had to do is we had to do what you have to do with global. We had to do a real assessment, which sounds like that's what you're doing. We had to look at, now, are these people getting a lot of money from United Way, or are they getting it from some other source? Or is this really gonna make a big difference? Same as scholarship. Is this gonna make a big difference to this particular nonprofit that we're giving to? So I wanna say that I'm thrilled to say that Rob has stepped up and he's going to be head of international. And I think he's just gonna.
The last little thing for everyone to think about Rotary International Foundation. We're very fortunate here that we do have the Brat Stand, because often I go around to clubs around the district asking for people to give to the Rotary Foundation. And it is always a challenge because you see what happens locally. So many Rotarians, I would say the majority, struggle even giving to the Rotary Foundation because they say we have enough need in our community. Why do we need to do any service internationally? But for those of us that have been fortunate to go overseas and get hugged by that mom in Guatemala, you understand there's a need everywhere and there is no right answer for all of us. On everything we ask, we all want to give. And whether it's that one person that's going to make a difference or that community of 1,000 people, they are all important. So this is a fun discussion we're having here, guys. So as we think about it, there is no wrong answer, okay?
Right.
So hopefully we can all work together and come up with a way, because we are so fortunate that we have a fundraiser like this versus all of the president going to each of you individually would say, please pony up and sell more roses, okay? So we can continue, fun discussion.
We're gonna do a quick computer change here. Yep. They're senior. But you're
That's okay.
Your computer is like another screen versus
I see.
yeah. One of like the X buttons, but I don't know which one.
Jared, do you know how to put display in?
I know, not on the PC. Like go into your settings.
I think it's
Can you just use the
Which one?
yeah, maybe that. So then duplicate is what you want. There you go.
Okay, we're good.
Nice job, Joe.
Can everybody still hear me online?
Can't hear you now.
Mute. There we go. Is that better? Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. I'm grabbing notes. So I'm not going to go through. I had some slides prepared, but I'm not going to go through all of those because I think in an effort of time, I just kind of want to. I don't want to go through all the details. But one of the things, and I can share this with the club, is and get this out so you can see the details. Is we did Mike Dillis actually put together this nice history of like the last 5 years of how we spent our program fees, and it's not only the Brats, it's not only the foundation and the scholarship and the international projects, but there's also there's projects we do like the outstanding student. There is the St. Mary's bingo party, things like the youth exchange program, things like that we've spent over the years. And that all comes out of the programs that Brat Stand's money. So I think what I'd like to do is share that with the group so everybody sees where those funds are going. But the bottom line is what's been coming out of all the results in the last few years is because the Brat Stand proceeds have come down, all of those expenses except for the foundation get paid first on a dollar for dollar basis. So that's where the kind of the rub comes, is that the foundation is getting less and less money each year. And so that's what we're trying to look at is to how do we go about that. So without going into any more details on the actual, what I'd like to do is spring out and get the discussion going is one of the thoughts that we had was, should we look at an allocation percentage? Should we think about, the Brat Stand or the foundation has come to as a policy, as Joe stated earlier, was 75% of they should advocate for 75% of the Brat Stand proceeds. Well, is that the right amount, or is there a different amount? If you look at historically, that number has been in the last few years has been closer to 60% or less. Is the 10% amount for international, kind of which we have historically looked at, was about that in prior years when the Brat Stand was doing well, but this last year, had you looked at the Brat Stand proceeds, would have been about $1,300 less than we actually gave to international. Same thing for scholarships. The scholarships has actually kind of gone up a little bit over the years. It was, probably more in the $6,000 range 5 years ago. Now it's up to $10,000. So should we be looking at a percentage so that as we see how, as the pie grows, everybody gets a little bit more, but maybe do we look at some kind of percentages? So where I'd like to go is to get some feedback from people, and whether we can get all that out today. We've got a lot of people online. I think, if you don't get a chance to voice something, or you think of something later, certainly reach out to me with an email. I'm going to collect all of the thoughts and have a presentation at the next board meeting in July, at which time we're going to try to hammer out how we're going to allocate the Brat Stand proceeds, at least for initial budget. And to address Joe's comment about not knowing exactly where to go with, at the beginning of the year, knowing where to spend the money because we don't know what the Brat Stand is going to do. We have talked already at the board level about having a 6-month budget. And then at the end after the Brat Stand is done for the year in November, looking at the December meeting and actually sitting down and saying, okay, what do we actually get and what makes sense? Maybe we might slightly tweak the budget at that point in time. Because the Brat Stand, the foundation money doesn't usually get spent until the spring. The scholarships doesn't get spent until the spring. And we just have to, the one thing we have to work around is how we manage the international, because we're usually working on those projects, trying to get grants written, and it takes a little longer to do that kind of stuff. So I want to throw that out to the floor. Tara?
So the one thing being on both boards that I was really confused about was the 75 versus 25. Is that currently in the bylaw?
Yes.
That's okay. And that was
foundation
bylaws. And that was approved by the foundation board or the membership?
The entire membership.
Okay. So if that's the case, the membership voted. And this year you're saying that you only got about 60%. Is that because we paid all of the other things first before we acknowledge that 75-25?
Well,
or what happened this year?
I think the real question is, we don't even know what the net proceeds were of Brat Stand last year.
Okay.
We don't. There was some transfers made of money from the club budget over the foundation account.
Okay.
And we saw them. We could see them. There were the two, a 13 and the 17,000. But we didn't know was the net then of the Brat Stand $30,000 this year? Where we weren't sure.
And who has the answer to that question? Jane or Jim or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
that's what we need to know.
Right. Or treasurer presumably would have to dig in and tell us.
I mean, there would be in the fact there would be notes in the regular board to show approval of those transfers to the foundation. Do you need someone to look at those minutes and determine?
It would be somebody from, so I'm on the foundation board as well. It would be somebody from the club board to dig into that. But to answer the other part of your question, the 60% didn't just happen last year. It's been happening for several years.
Okay, that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, so the historical, now in hindsight, the historical look back, we probably should have gone and done a history study before we made a motion of 75-25. But we didn't. At the time, we felt that was a reasonable number. But the history that Dan has will show that it hasn't hit 75 for many, many years. Right.
Okay.
And part of it too, Sarah, it's the international and high school scholarships used to be part of the foundation. Go back 20 years, and we did that. I mean, I can't tell you how many projects I used to coordinate with ASHA, Indian girls' school projects, and things like that. All of that stuff had happened out of the foundation. Now that's kind of migrated over to the club board domain, and so that's part of it too.
But I feel like there's also this big disconnect between the two boards with two very different focuses. Right. And that's what I saw. Yeah, that's what I saw as a huge issue for our chapter, for our group, is that we can't have that when you've got one board taking monies that the rest of the membership are volunteering to create. Like was messy, like for me as sitting in the last 2 years.
I feel like at least one or two joint meetings of both boards should happen in a year. Yep. Especially like early right now, like in July or August, the foundation board and the club board should be together. Especially when it comes to building the budget.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at our 501c3, we're supposed to be the charitable arm of the club.
The regular club.
Right. That's what Dick Rayberg and the others envisioned. That's why they created the foundation.
Question, doesn't the foundation board get a treasurer's report and accounting for the income and expenses?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the regular board report is the financial statement for the club, but that's, yours is different.
All members have access to that.
For the foundation?
For the club.
Right.
The foundation publishes his work in an annual report, Joe said.
We make it $1 grand.
But the foundation has their own financial reports.
Right.
But it's for the money that is contained within boundaries of the corporate of the foundation.
Right.
What we don't see is a regulator action between the finances of the club and how that might affect the foundation.
Well, I was floored by some of you saying you don't know what the net proceeds of the Brat Stand.
Right.
I agree.
We did not get a clear answer this year.
Isn't that the purpose of a financial report? That information would be there if there
One would think so.
Report, wouldn't it?
One would think it would be. And we should be able to get an answer, but we have not been able to get an answer from our treasurer.
Yeah, Aaron Frank had raised his hand first, so I'm going to ask Aaron.
So
who else had? Okay, Aaron, then Alan. Okay.
I've got some opinions and thoughts I wanted to throw out there for you.
I can't hear you, Aaron, and
I am not on.
You're unmuted.
Yeah.
Shoot, it may have been when we switched over here. Hang on.
Yeah, we can hear you, Aaron. So it's on that end.
Is that good for you guys?
We can hear you now.
All right. Unfortunately, you guys are now with all of us online who can actually hear me. So I've got some opinions on this I want to share with you. From a few years of running the Brat Stand, our net proceeds should be between 35 and 40% is our cost of goods. So just keep that in mind. Our net profit should be typically between 70 and 65% on average. At least that's what it was. And if not, we should probably raise our prices. But I'm going to throw out a suggestion because I've always thought that our club foundation is, well, quite frankly, that's where the money goes out to other nonprofits. We have been doing these 5th Monday meetings at remote sites. Why don't we make our 5th Monday meetings foundation meetings for our club and get involved our whole club? Because I always think that we have a large club of active and smart people, and to have them more engaged in our foundation will be wise and beneficial to us and our community. So instead of doing these off-site meetings, let's have a 5th Monday meeting be our foundation meeting where we can all have our input, but we have a board there that will make those decisions. And that's why you should volunteer for the board if you are concerned or want to do things, but just a couple of cents worth.
Thank you.
Alan?
My turn. Keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, all of the proceeds from the Brat Stand are generally used for local projects and local 501c3 requests. None of that money goes, unless it's a special project or something, goes to the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Foundation is made up of individual donations from club members that contribute to it. And so right now they're separate as far as I know. They always have been. The second thing is the Polio Plus tip jars that we started were done specifically to allow people in the community to participate in the eradication of polio worldwide with our club. And we have always donated those funds directly to the Rotary Foundation Polio Plus Fund. That's the only stuff or monies that come out of our Brat Stand to the Rotary Foundation, as far as I know. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about changes, et cetera, going on. But I don't approve of tip jars being used for just tips to support our local stuff. It was nice to be able to use that for International Polio Plus donations, because at one time they were looking for a minimum of 2,000 per club in every district for donations. So that's completely covered that, and we've gone above that.
for a number of years. So I would hate to see that go away by any means. Thank you.
Here and so too that they're advertised for the tip jars or say they're advertised to go to polio. So
right. And anybody else online who wants to cover anything? Otherwise, we can. John Calloway, local here.
This is just a vocabulary thing, but I think it's important to use correct terms. I don't think it's really net proceeds. It's either gross sales or net profit, because we're kind of mixing those two things up. So it's how much money totally did we get in sales, less whatever our expenses were, our profits. And I'm also concerned that no one can articulate what that was.
We can articulate that. We just need to get some sit down, and I'll get in the middle of it if I need to. I'm a CPA. I can figure that out. No, I mean, yeah, I don't know what your communication with Jane is, and I know that there's some thing mechanics that are also in what you guys are trying to get your calculations, but I'll get in the middle and figure that out. So. All right, I think we're running kind of late here. I'd like to wrap up the meeting. One more online. Sorry.
I got one more quick thing for you. Is that all right?
Yes.
So when Joe was doing his presentation, he also brought up that $27,000 in the repair and replacement fund, and he was unsure what that was for. So back with the previous czar, that was set up because prior to that, we had some trailers that went way over budget and harmed our donations one year. So it cost us approximately $50,000 to $60,000 now to replace the one of the major trailers, the refrigerated ones, if we would have to go a complete replacement. So that money is set aside from the beer money they give us each year, goes into there to help us repair, replace, or whatever we need to do with it. So it is nowhere near enough to replace should something devastating happen to the trailers. So that's the purpose of that $27,000 that he was unsure on what it was for, how it came to be. That's for an emergency.
And the board has approved that. Yeah, the board has approved that, and that's kind of a decision to keep that there as a future thing. And I think is a wise move from that perspective. So okay, okay. I had one other thought. No, I just lost it. But anybody with any additional feedback, please email me. I'll take all of that information in. I will send out to everybody kind of a history, in an email of just so you can see what this is and maybe some thoughts as to how we're looking at for percentages. But let me put something together that I can send out that's got more detail. And if anybody wants to then just email me on your thoughts, I appreciate that. I had one more thought. I apologize.
This is such an important topic. I really feel bad that we lost half the membership at one of the team. I really think if we have another opportunity to have it with, and we could just not do any happy sads, and it could be the full 45 minutes.
Well, we may have before we do the final. Our next board meeting will be in the end of July. We're going to do the fourth week of July for the board meeting. So possibly before then, maybe we can. Take a little bit of time just to have any further discussion that what people want to have. Oh, I know I was going to say, just because of the clarification, the polio plus tip money went into a liability account and never went into any of the proceeds. So when you see the Brat Stand proceeds, it's not in the Brat Stand proceeds or net at all. It just went separately to a liability because it's an account we just paid it in spring sometime here. So it's not in any of the income numbers you see. It was separately carved out, just so you know. That was one of the things that if you saw the full financial statement for the month of during the year, you would have seen that. So that's what I was thinking about. Okay. All right. Thank you for everybody. Appreciate it. I'll end the meeting. Thanks.